Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our March PKI Insights webinar on X9 PKI in practice. So if you're a regular attendee, you'll notice that I am not Mark Cooper. Mark's on a well-deserved vacation this week, so I'll be filling in this month. My name is Tim Lozier. I am PKI Solutions Head of Marketing, and I am joined today by our one and only Jake. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Jake, and maybe tell us a little bit about what we're going to be discussing today.
Sure, thanks, Tim. So Jake Granlard, hopefully people that have been here before recognize me or remember us, but I've been with the company now for quite a while. The second person Mark hired as we kind of built everything out, but I've done PKI now for a really long time. But as we've gone on, we've kind of had to increase our view, to help our clients best of where we used to be really deeply technical, which we still are. But today's topic is a little different in that we're trying to do a better job of watching out for some of the other things that are sneaking up on some of our clients. So that's where today's topic comes in and why we're touching on that one, and which is that the X9 PKI standard.
Excellent. Thanks for giving us the tee up there. But before we get going, I wanted to announce something exciting for us at PK Solutions. So last week, we were awarded an annual Globee Award for cybersecurity, and we were best in category win for PKI. So very excited to have that happen. It's actually our third year winning this award. So I guess you could say we pulled off a three-peat, right, Jake? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just want to remind everybody that we're going to do Q&A throughout the presentation and at the end. And I'm going to certainly throw a few out there if it makes sense during the session. So feel free to pop in your questions in the Q&A box over there, and we'll get through the questions as best we can. Okay, so why don't we get started? So today we're going to be talking about, well, Jake's going to be talking about mostly. I'm just going to try and catch up. What exactly is an X9 PKI or PKI or certificate? Some of the benefits and drawbacks of X9, and then some important dates and MTLS. So, Jake, I'm just going to try and keep up with you as we go along. So
I think you'll do great.
Seriously. So I'll let you take it away, man. You want me to slide and move on?
Yeah, you go to the next slide, please.
Cool. Let's go.
Thank you. So like I said at the beginning, today's topic on X9 PKI and X9 certificates has really kind of come in more recently. And so what I want to do today is kind of talk a little bit about what it is, kind of what it isn't. And, of all times, for Mark to be away right now, Mark actually participated initially in some of these discussions and providing feedback for these standards. So what the X9 PKI is it's a private PKI these standards were put together. It was put out for bid, like who wants to do this? And DigiCert is the one who got the contract and is now owning this. But and I think that's where it draws a little bit of confusion, where everyone assumes DigiCert. Well, if it's DigiCert, everyone must trust it, and it doesn't. And that's one of the things why I wanted to call this out and some of the other changes that are going on. But it was initially intended for the financial industry, so they wanted their own standards. It relies a bit more heavily on elliptic curve and something like that for some of the signatures and whatnot. But the big thing here is, since it is a private PKI hosted by DigiCert, it doesn't fall under the or following rules from the CAB forum, and everyone probably knows the CAB forum is who is responsible. It's collaboration between a bunch of really large companies, but they are the ones that are setting our current certificate validity standards and our DNSSEC for registering, being able to host our websites and everything like that. So when we think about trusted certificates for our browsers and things like that, That's the CAB forum. This is a private PKI, so it doesn't fall under their rules. So, and we'll touch on why that's more important a little bit later on here in one of the slides. And I think it's why it's kind of coming out and getting a lot more attention right now. So we can go to the next slide there.
Sure. Go right over.
Yeah. So like I was just mentioning, that the benefits of this X9 PKI and these certificates are, it's a private PKI. It's hosted by DigiCert, but it is technically a private PKI. It'd be similar to, you bear with me for the analogy here, but if you catch a fish and you take it to a restaurant and they cook it for you, it's your fish. You know where it came from. With them, they follow the rules set forth by this governing body, and it is a sanctioned PKI. So it does everything very well. It is a very well run PKI, and which is some of the benefits of it is this isn't some random PKI that someone is hosting and telling people, hey, I'll give you a certificate. This is DigiCert, so they know what they're doing. But by the same token, that same level of trust we hear when we hear DigiCert's name, we can, I think sometimes it is assumed, oh, if I get one of these, it's the best of all the worlds. I don't have to follow the CAB forum rules. I can still get a certificate with client auth, even though we'll touch on it later that there's been a little movement on that. We don't have to follow the same validity periods, but no one trusts it. So if you want to use a certificate like this, if Tim and I both, tim.com and jake.com, if I start using an X9 certificate, I have to make sure Tim trusts the X9 PKI, because by default, he will not. So that's one of the biggest pieces I want to make sure we get out here, is that there is an additional step. And sometimes that step can be really tricky when you're dealing with a government entity or even large corporations. They can be really fussy on bringing in new root PKIs to trust. So that's one of the big drivers for the topic today, along with getting some more information out there on it.
Got it. Someone was just asking, Chandra was asking, can I procure the HSMs from elsewhere and implement X9 on premises?
No, this is a case of they issue the certificates. No different than getting a certificate from DigiCert. You would buy it from them. Once you have that certificate, and there are ways you could do it. You could store that private key of that issued certificate, but in this case, what we are getting from them is a private entity certificate. They are the CA. So we don't host a PKI for these standards. They own the standard. But once you have it, you could definitely protect this, and it is encouraged, since this is more financial, which financial has a tendency to leverage a lot more key protection around HSMs and whatnot. Protecting those keys on an appliance, whether it be an HSM at a larger level or smart card, whatever it is, just protecting that key from export and having it move away.
Got it. I see the financial services. So is it kind of overkill outside of financial services, or are you seeing it expand into the other industries?
Well, where I'm seeing it, and that's a great question, because it's a port in a storm right now, and right now, I'm sure everyone on the call that is doing PKI, it does feel stormy right now. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it just feels like right now it's one after another. But what it is DigiCert itself is sending out mailers and emails to their clients saying, hey, if you're having trouble with mutual TLS, we can help you out. So it's not just that people are stumbling on this thinking, oh, will this work? It's actively being put out there as an option, even though that wasn't, probably initially thought of in that capacity, at least, initially. but it will work. So is it overkill? It saves someone having to go through the trouble of having their internal PKI used, because as we'll touch on in the next slide, is soon enough public CAs aren't going to issue client authentication certificates. And if you want to do mutual TLS, and mutual meaning we need both server and client authentication, we have to have something. So to me, this is it's a logical step. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that it's not as easy as getting a publicly trusted certificate from like a, DigiCert, Global Sign, Sectigo, all of those.
Got it. And if it's not if it's not certified by CAB, how's that going to come under with compliance, respective compliance?
It is built to standards, and it's accredited. Again, DigiCert has a great reputation. They are one of the public CAs that have been around for quite a while and not gotten themselves in trouble. But it's just something where we don't have to necessarily follow the CAP standards, because this isn't something that's a part of Google's root program or Microsoft's root program or anybody else's. Basically, we don't have to necessarily follow your rules because we're not playing your game. This is our game. It's kind of how I see it, and I think why it's being done this way is there can be some additional flexibility for the financial institutions and whatnot that are willing to go that little bit extra to implement it or use it.
And can you actually create your own internal PKI and get it X9 certified?
As for hosting your own,
right?
I don't know if I can't say 100% of that. I've not seen that. I won't say never, because I will say I'm not a in-depth expert at this by any stretch, but I have seen enough to know how we would normally go and get it. That's something that DigiCert does do. For in other cases, there are a lot of stipulations and reviews and audits and whatnot. If you want to issue certificates that essentially chain up to DigiCert in the past, like for their public CA, I don't know for certain. It wouldn't surprise me, but then you will follow the rules that they have set forth and these standards that have been accredited and everything.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, I guess we can move on.
Yeah, we can move on. Yep. And so with the dates here, this is kind of, I think, a bit of a perfect storm, back to my analogy earlier, but this is kind of coming up. So initially, the public CAs at the CAB forum had said, thou shalt not issue clients auth certs any longer after May 1st of 2026. And it didn't probably take as quickly as we would have wanted and everything. And people running their PKIs were kind of scrambling. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? So in comes this, X9 as an alternative. It's not our internal PKI, so we don't have full control over it in that sense. However, it's a reputable name, and they can issue client auth certificates past that May 9th date, or May 1st, I'm sorry. Since then, however, CAB Forum had put out and said, you know what, we're going to push this out a little bit. So now the new date for the end of client auth from the public CAs is March 1st, 2027. So a little bit of reprieve there. But at this point, we're still sub-year, just by a little bit. But yeah, so it's going to come up again. We've just kicked that can a little bit down the road, and it's going to come up again. And again, why I thought it was a great time for us to kind of bring more attention to this, as it's a possible alternative, but just know that it's not as simple as a publicly trusted CA or something that a normal process that we had used in the past.
Got it. And how do they propose that companies adopt this X9 PKI route?
Really, it would be in a way similar to how we would, if we were to onboard a new public CA. So recently, I know a lot of our clients and probably a lot of people on the call were impacted when some of the public CAs were made to sell in trust, had some issues and had to sell off their public CA part, and it was picked up. So we dealt with a lot of our clients moving to different public CA. And then to do that, as everyone probably remembers, it's if you didn't already have all the trusts in your store, so all the possible root CAs that could be issuing certificates that we trust, then they had to go and do that. And we had a couple clients where they started down the process and found out we didn't get out to all the Linux, Unix, Nix teams, and they didn't trust it. So there's a little bit of a setback, but then you go. So really, it's a matter of just making sure that internally those certificates are trusted, so all the clients trust them. And then if you're going to do that, also you want to make sure that if you are collaborating or working with another company, that they need to trust it as well. So it's not just us that needs to always be sure it is trusted. If you're doing any type of, especially in a financial system where multiple entities are going back and forth securely, we need to know both sides trust it in order to both leverage those certificates to encrypt those transactions or that data.
Got it. And actually, this is from my own curiosity. What would actually happen or break if organizations don't act before that March 27 date?
They mutual TLS will essentially fail, and because if we don't have and mutual TLS, it's something that I feel like it's gained in popularity a lot over the past couple of years, 2-3 years, whatever, or at least I hear more questions about it. In the past, in the early days when I was doing consulting, all we really cared about was a certificate on our web servers that clients knew where they had arrived was where they wanted to be. This is now the mutual TLS is that client that's arriving. We want them to present a certificate to us, and that would be client authentication to say, hey, we know who you are too. So if we don't have a trusted certificate they can present to us, if we don't trust it, they're not coming in. So that really it would limit our ability to stay with that more secure mutual certificate exchange of, hey, we are who we are, tell us who you are. And we wouldn't be able to do that any longer, or we would have to take extraordinary measures of building a secure PKI or, doing a practice of making sure that all the clients trusted each other's certificates, and then we get into certificate policy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and that's where what DigiCert is doing takes a lot off of our plate, which is great. So it is an alternative after that March date for someone to consider. Just know that, like I said, it's something that isn't as straightforward as a normal certificate, but still much easier than essentially building your own and having everyone trust your internal private PKI.
And just again, so the mutual TLS, is it just trusting external issued TLS certificates, or is there more to it? Is that what you're kind of alluding to?
Basically, these are certificates that can be issued to do similar things that we would get public certificates for, but it's since it's a private CA, which I guess technically could be looked at as a little bit of a risk in that this is a private CA that was initially intended for the financial industry. They are the ones that control this. If Jake Co. subscribes and starts buying this and rules change, I don't have any say in it. I'm not part of that. I'm just kind of playing, I hopped into their game. So I'm going to be responsible to make sure that I know what is changing, if any. Not saying it will, but it could. Whereas now in the public CA forum, we have the CAB forum, and then it's a lot of people coming together. Google, Microsoft, CAB forum is huge. Apple, they're all putting their input in. So on a private PKI, we don't have that level of input. So, yeah, again, just something to be aware of, but really it's just another way of us to securely exchange data or messages or things like that, or just signed financial transaction. And the receiver of that knows, hey, I trust who signed that because I trust that PKI. And then, and then we're good, which is really what all of us are doing in this field anyway.
Got it. Okay. A couple questions coming in here. I mean, I think some of the chatter's been who actually governs the X9. There's some debate about whether DigiCert is the actual owner or it's actually owned by another governing body, but DigiCert's one of the ones who's the first adopter. What's kind of the the story behind that? Do you know?
Yeah. So from talking initially, it was kind of ironic. When I first started hearing more about this, I was talking to Mark Cooper, and he said, "Oh yeah, I took part in some of that preliminary information and discussions and whatnot, and just adding input and feedback." And it was my understanding. So technically, DigiCert doesn't own this, but they're hosting it. So if something were to go south or whatever, they don't technically own the X9 PKI. They are the ones hosting it right now. It could go to another vendor, I'm sure, because as I understood it, it was put out to bid. They won the bid. They're hosting it. But if something didn't go the way they wanted or whatever, it could go to someone else, I'm assuming. So DigiCert doesn't own this standard. It is a governing body that owns it. DigiCert is hosting it right now, and that's how that's how it is right now.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like Troy said they have a 2-year control of it right now, I guess, and so
yeah.
So and then it'll be open to other CAs. So that's an interesting fact. So the chatter's been pretty good here on this one. So I appreciate everybody weighing in. This is kind of fun.
Well, this is one where I'm seeing a lot of names in the chat come through, and it's a lot of people we've talked to about this, and what we're going to do, because it does give us an option. So like when I say that alternative after March 1st, 2027. So it does give us another option. I think it's one of those. To me, it's a fine solution, as long as everyone knows what they are getting and knows the additional steps they need to take. I think it's a good solution. It's just not as straightforward and easy a process as it would be, say, on the other side of a publicly trusted PKI that the CAB forum, something that is part of the root programs. And I guess that's how I'll differentiate these now is when I say the CAB forum and then other publicly trusted PKIs, these are the certificates that we automatically see on our Macs, on our Windows boxes, on our phones, because they have followed the rules and regulations to be part of this root trust program, and they automatically are trusted by a lot of our devices. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference. And we would need to add that level of trust manually with the X9 PKI and those certificates.
Got it. And will this come with any CLMs as well?
It essentially follows the X509. So this is a certificate really no different than certificates we issue in the sense of our machines will they're not going to not understand what the certificate is or anything. It wouldn't be the difference of us trying to slide in like a post-quantum certificate right now or something like that. But so we can manage in the same way. I'm assuming, again, since it's DigiCert, things would be made available. Most of the major CLM players have APIs and whatnot that allow them to automatically integrate and manage their certificates from DigiCert. So, but I don't know for sure on that side of it. I can't say for certain. I would guess so. That's logical to me. I would hope so, honestly. But I don't know 100% for sure.
Got it. So, just out of curiosity, there was one question. What are the other public certs other than X9 if they choose not to move over after March? Are there any other anything
Really,
anything
yeah.
else available?
To me, I don't know of another option available right now.
Hmm.
But again, there's nothing that says Jakeco or Timco couldn't start their own. But obviously, no one knows Timco or Jakeco. They're not going to trust us. And that's where I think the governing body for the X9, um, this had to have been issued by or controlled by a public CA that already has um, their standards and their processes in order. Like it couldn't have. I don't think it could have come from any just any old shop that is technically on a technical basis able to issue these certificates. It needed to be something that garnered that level of trust that a Digicert or a Sectigo or I know there's a bunch of them out there. Those are just ones I seem to deal with a lot, but not trying to show favoritism to any of them. But that's what it needs. That's what it needs to be. But there is nothing stopping us from doing it, because as long as Timco trusts Jakeco and the reverse, we could do it all day long. Issue certs, you would trust mine, I would trust yours, and it would work. But we just as a whole, the industry and isn't going to trust a no name out there that doesn't garner that respect like the big public CAs do.
Right. And I'm just thinking about this. Like, so there, the governing body that actually is, putting the standard forth with X9 is one thing, and now DigiCert's got some level of exclusivity. Is there certain who's really kind of dictating the governing rules here? Is it the governing body, or is DigiCert throwing their hand in there? What's kind of that look like? Do we know?
Well, it should be the governing body. Like this is something that is mine. I'm giving it to you to run. Here are our rules. Implement these rules. Um, there's policy. There's all the things. Again, I don't know for certain if this was something where they came out and said, "Hey, we want to do this. Tell us how we should do it." My hunch is the fact that they were asking industry experts like Mark and other figures from the industry actually working in the financial industry. They probably took this as a package and said, "This is what we want. And this is how you're going to do it. Who wants to do it?" And the companies probably put forth their interest or bid or whatever, however that process works,
Yeah.
and they got to do it. So they are the governing body. They own the standards.
Got it. Okay. So here's a question for Keith. If a company has used DigiCert, right, and then company A, right, uses
Mhm.
DigiCert, and then company C also uses DigiCert, is that two different roots of trust that need to be managed by the company?
It would be so if again going back to my simple lousy probably example, but even if Tim Co and Jaco both buy our public certs from DigiCert, we don't automatically trust X9 root and stuff. It makes it easier for you and I to buy them because we already have that process established.
Hmm.
But we'd still have to go through the same steps of downloading their roots and importing them, making sure they're trusted. And we'd have to do the same thing. So I think the real advantage there that would make it easier is you already have that process down of buying certificates from Digicert. That puts us one step ahead because everyone knows when we try to bring in a new vendor at times, that's tough. I mean, it can be really hard to switch vendors and do all of that stuff, at least on a organization wide basis. That's what I see when working with our clients. It's difficult at times. So that's where I would see, but really, doesn't get us any further ahead on a technical basis, other than just making it easier for us to acquire and buy the certs because we already have accounts there.
Got it. Okay. Um, so here's another question that came up. What compliance would you follow if you're going to trust a private CA from someone else? With X9, at least we are getting a CA that follows some policy and we are governed. So just trying to see what other options there are to establish trust between two companies.
That to me, that, and one of the reasons I wanted to kind of bring this up today is DigiCert is a reputable company. In standing, we have a lot of clients that utilize DigiCert, and it's a third party. So you trust them, I trust them. It's easier sometimes, I feel like, to have a neutral third party that we both trust versus, hey, I'll trust you if you trust me. But maybe you do a lousy job at your PKI, or maybe I do. You know, you never know. And if I don't have all the policy in place, how do you know what I do with my PKI? Oh yeah, that's great. Which, so that's, I think, again, the advantage there is most clients have a process in order to trust a root CA. My hunch is it's probably a lot easier to move through a change board or something like that and say, oh, by the way, this is actually run by DigiCert. Here's their policies they're following, you know, everything like that. So again, they, I think, are a step ahead because they are publicly trusted, and so many clients know of them.
Got it. So, you know, I'm, you know, obviously the new guy here, so I'm curious, like, how many folks out there, I'll ask you, Jake, just from your experience, and anybody in the chat want to, you know, throw in there, how many are currently using the X9 certificates, or at least evaluating them? What have you seen? And anybody in the chat want to throw their hat in the ring?
So I know we have one client, and I think I saw him pop through the chat earlier, that, you know, we were looking at this. But like I said, I think it was coming up real strong with the May 1st, 2026 date. People were going to be scrambling a bit.
Right.
Now it's been moved back a little bit. Hopefully we don't push it all the way back to the back burner, because we do have a little more time. But I don't know a lot of clients doing it. At least I haven't gotten a lot of questions for it. But it's an area where I've talked MTLS with a lot of our clients, and there aren't many games in town right now. So this is a viable option and something to look at. So that's, again, why I was hoping that us kind of bringing our clients along for this journey, trying to expand our horizons to help people with more than just their internal PKI, and look at how this impacts the entire business. We're trying to do a little bit, you know, more in that area and be better.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like, I mean, it's kind of crazy that, you know, they had pushed this May deadline. Now they're pushing a year out. So I imagine a lot of people were scrambling and probably recognized that. So,
right.
Okay. Well, listen, in the interest of time, why don't we close this out? So I don't want to keep everybody hanging. I mean, there's a ton of chatter. We can go through it, and we'll definitely get through these questions. And, you know, if there are questions, we'll go through them. But Jake, do you want to just give us a quick summary of what we just went through? So we went off on a little bit of a tangent. So why don't you summarize it? Wrap it up.
I think that's good. I like getting questions and feedback from the attendees, but you know, basically in summary, it's an option. I think it's a viable option, especially with the dates coming up on us. We're less than a year out on the final end. You know, in March of 27. Just know essentially what it is, and if it fits your needs. Just make sure you're following all the steps that you need to do to make sure everyone trusts it. If you're using it, or this is between clients, you know, again, just make sure that you're aware of everything you need to do. And I think, you know, it's a great solution. Just don't think because it's DigiCert, it's automatically, you know, it's as simple as going and getting a new server, a web server certificate. So it won't be quite that easy. I think, and that's it. You know, keep in mind those dates, the March of 27. And this is an option out there. You know, you can go out and look. I've seen several people linking to it out there. Read a little bit more about it, and reach out to us if you have any additional questions. I love getting questions and things like that. So we're always out here to help and answer questions when we can. Yeah,
definitely. A couple of folks on the chatter here were mentioned that the ASC's website, which is the governing body, I believe. So they put a bunch of links and videos in here. So if you're if you're following the chat, there's some good information, to support what we're talking about. So just make sure you plop in there and check all those guys out. Just a couple quick questions. Apart from the client auth EKU, how else does it differ from a standard PKI?
There are some changes. Like I said, I think this is probably heavier around elliptic curve, and it's still following X509 format. And so it is another PKI. It's not going to be groundbreaking in that way or anything like that. It's just the additional steps of it won't automatically be be trusted. So that's really the biggest lift on our side. All of our current systems are going to do just fine with these types of certificates.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Good to know. All right. I'll put a pin in it there. But before we sign off, do you want to give us a quick tease on what's coming up for April's webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. So the other big topic I've been getting a lot of lately, on the other side, since we mentioned the CAB forum, is that much shorter duration in all our certificates that we're seeing. So probably the new buzzword is automation. Everyone automation, and rightfully so. And then I think a close second with that is ACME, the ACME protocol. How do we implement the ACME protocol? So that's what we're going to touch on next month. Kind of what I'm seeing, what we're seeing from some of the CLMs, what are some of the other options we have out there, and when do we kind of see this phasing out and maybe supplanting some of the older protocols out there that we've used in the past eventually from what we're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a great topic. So listen, everybody, if you're already interested in this and want to register, there's going to be a link over here on the resource section right there on the ACME with PKI webinar. So feel free to sign up now and get in on the fun. If any questions that were in here, we'll make sure we get to them in a timely fashion, make sure we kind of look through them. And if there's anything there we can answer, we'll certainly get to them. But, apart from that, this concludes our webinar. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Jake, for presenting a great topic. A lot of chatter. It was really good to see it. And looking forward to even more chatter next month. As always, we're going to have a recording of the webinar. It's going to be available on our YouTube channel so the next couple of days or so. So if you haven't already done it, head over to the channel, like and subscribe, and you'll get the regular updates when the new videos drop. So we'll make sure we get that out as soon as we can. Other than that, I think we're ready to close out. Jake, any parting words for the audience?
No. I appreciate everyone's time, like always. Thanks for joining in.
All right, guys. Everybody, thank you, Jake. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And everybody have a great day. See you.
Thank you.